Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us to, I think, what will most might be the last Angel Connect for this year. Um, I am reminded on a regular basis by a very enthusiastic person who is five that it is less than 60 days to Christmas, which kind of
Yeah.
gets my anxiety levels going. Um, and with a lot of conferences and events between now and then, as well as us wrapping off up cohort 12, hopefully we're going to see a lot more of you in person at ACES, at a couple of other conferences happening towards the end of the year. But don't worry, we will still post lots of activity on the WhatsApp group. We have a fantastic session lined up for you, and I almost feel like we only have an hour, but we might even need a little bit. Um, a little bit more time because really what we are here to discuss is the role of AI in the life of an early stage investor, and for angels, how can we leverage AI to make uh, better investment decisions and also potentially automate some of the workflows, especially for investors like angels who are not necessarily spending all day, every day looking at deals. But then on the other side as well, what are some of the really exciting opportunities that AI presents to us? And how can we potentially support some early stage innovations, African innovations who are using AI? We've recently had, we were in Dakar for the Africa Prize Finals, which is funded by the Royal Academy of Engineering. And the winner was a fantastic Kenyan, Ellie, who is using AI to do automated sign language in real time for multiple African sign languages. He's also received a $2 million grant from Google for his innovation, but we're seeing more and more really interesting innovations using and leveraging AI popping up. So I'm sure there are also going to be lots of questions around assessing AI opportunities. Today, however, I'm joined by two individuals who are much more knowledgeable about AI in the deep tech space than I am. We've got Babacar Seck and Nick Allen. And I'm really looking forward to a great conversation this evening. I'm going to start off, Babacar, if I could ask you to give a quick introduction to yourself and your
Yes. Uh,
um, angel investment and investment background.
Alex.
Yes, Nick. Nick's frozen. Okay. Babacar, I'm going to hand over to you, and hopefully Nick will have unfrozen by the time you have done your introduction.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Alexandra, for the intro, and congratulations to African Angel Academy for doing all this great work you're doing. Angel investors are really, really important in our ecosystem because, I mean, very often headlines focus on the amount of money, but it's also the quality of the capital. And angels are the people who make this ecosystem really lively, dynamic, and give opportunities also to some founders that maybe VCs have a blind eye towards. Um, so I'm Babacar Seck. I'm the founder and managing partner of Askya Investment Partners. We're an investment firm dedicated to backing generational AI and tech companies from Africa. So we invest across Francophone and Anglophone Africa, and we seek to bridge the two markets to create true regional champions. Prior to this, I mean, I've been investing in African startups for the past decade. Initially working for a corporate called AXA Insurance Group, and then for Proparco, the French development finance institution, where I helped build a venture arm. Thereafter, Digital Africa as the CEO, and now Askya. So it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Fantastic, Babacar. Thank you. Nick, I'm going to add a pin and hope that you're able to
Yeah,
do an
I'm
intro.
I'm I'm back, and hopefully I'll stay here. I'm sorry, you said we're gonna have a nice chat this evening, and then it just died on me. So I'll try stay on as long as possible. I have a feeling that there are some youngsters in my house that are stealing all my bandwidth, but if I drop off again, I'll go and take some names. Um, Good evening, everybody. My name's Nick Allen. I'm the founder of Savant, and at the moment, my main role within the Savant organization is focusing on the investment side of what we do. Over the last 21 years, we've been a hardware and deep tech support organization, incubator, accelerator, general hands-on dog's body, helping scientists and engineers and innovators take their physical technologies to market. And have added a funding component to what we do over the last 5 to 10 years. So yeah, we're about trying to help people, innovators, turn their tech into products and take those products to market, both locally and on the international market. Yeah, so that's what we're about.
Fantastic. I can see some people in the chat can't see Nick. I have pinned him, and hopefully you can see him now. Otherwise, I'll remove myself as a pin, and then you can have the main speakers as well. So Babacar and Nick, I would love to know, how have you started using AI within your organization, specifically to kind of automate the investment process? And how have you, I think, um, I'll let you ask that question because I was going to load it with another question and I'm just going to layer on top of it. So I won't do an AI question pancake.
Babacar, you want to go first?
I don't, but it's okay.
Okay,
I
look,
can
I'll
do
go.
it.
I mean,
I can share what we, what we're
yeah,
doing at Askya in that space, and what I'm gonna describe there is very much work in progress because we keep learning about new tools all the time. But I'd say for us there are three key areas where we've been using AI internally. And not just since generative AI came up, actually, there are some tools that have been around for a while that are very effective. Now, not all of them apply to Angel. I think first one is CRM. We've been using a tool that's very common in the industry that's called Affinity, that really pulls the data from your email, agenda, meeting notes, etc., to give you a 360 view of all your interactions with the companies. And helps you, set reminders to reconnect with founders from time to time. So that's been extremely helpful, especially, we're in terms of number of people, we're a small firm. So that's very helpful to never forget anyone, or at least most of the time, avoid those misses that, you met a founder, interesting, but you wanted to see more, and then you forgot to call them 6 months later. And actually the round happens, and you could have added value, you could have made intros, but since it was not on your radar, you missed it. So I think that's one area, is like those kind of tools exist, and they're very effective. Now there are other tools that exist for specifically I think automation, because I mean, before we talk about AI, right, what is AI? AI is automation based on data. It's very high powered automation, but it's still automation. And so for us, the other area where it's really useful is knowledge development. Now I'm saying this with a caveat. In Africa, there's less availability of data, less availability of reports, consulting papers, etc., etc. Nevertheless, when you use the deep search function in some of these AI tools, it's really convenient to get a primer on a sector that you don't know, or if you want to do a literature review. So, I mean, we do a lot of research internally, but you cannot know about everything. So if tomorrow I'm, looking at a very narrow segment of healthcare or microchip or something like that, I can go and get a primer on several aspects of that sector, and then get a list of, reliable sources, in a way that, I would have had to call people. I still call people, but in this case, I can, in half a day, learn a lot about a sector in a way I couldn't do before. So I think in the research area, it's very, very convenient. And Gemini, in my experience, is the best tool to do that. And finally, less applicable for angels, but for the later stage deals where you have these huge data rooms, Notebook LM. So Notebook LM is an iteration of Gemini, but it's a model that actually only analyzes the data you feed in it. And this data is not shared. So this is totally confidential, and does not go in the cloud or doesn't train any models. And it's been built on purpose for that. I wouldn't recommend to do the same for the other models. But Notebook LM allows you to insert a certain quantity of data and then query that data. So, for example, if you're doing just a quick screening memo, if you get a data room with 1,000 items, you're not going to read them. But you could take, maybe the contracts and say, okay, I want to know in these contracts, questions 1, 2, 3. And then you can finally, you can quickly find out whether these questions that you have in the contracts are addressed or not. So yeah, that's what I would say on my side.
Yeah, there's some good points, and I think there are a lot of tools out there that are specifically built for like key things. Affinity. I think you'll probably find there's a lot of AI built into a lot of what we do. The note takers that we all use aren't there? They're usually about 10 note takers that are in every meeting. So I don't know if they've arrived today. That will give you a précis of what you've spoken about. Those are immensely valuable and really, really helpful. They're getting better and better, and I mean we do use those a lot. The ability to add notes and to add them into other aspects that we other tools that we use. I think it's kind of when you're running a VC business, you kind of look at the tools and you do your cost benefit analysis and you understand what's going to work. I think from an angel perspective, just the basics of using it. We use paid versions of ChatGPT, which allows you to use those without your data being shared. You've got your confidentiality in place, etc. But then similar to as Babacar is talking about, the ability to run queries on large data sets, pull out information that's really valuable to you, review documents, and generate very brief or generate those reviews that you need. I mean, I think those kinds of things have really benefited us. The ability to look at things really, really quickly, get a great initial view of them using AI. I think, for the angels out there, that those kinds of tools are massively valuable. You can go in and you can get your AI tools to review documents that you just would never have been, being able to get to. So, that's certainly something that I would recommend. You do want to use the paid versions. You want to be, you got to put all the caveats in place. You've got to, you got to be, you've got to understand that AI is not going to get everything right. It's going to have moments, but it's, if you wary and you're aware, then there's definitely value to be had there.
Yeah, I think, one of the big things is as well, especially if you is also just making sure, and certainly, I mean, it's been a concern for us and kind of our other businesses, but being compliant with also POPIA and GDPR and protecting people's data is really kind of critical. And you as an investor, you're also trying to build trust, and if someone does share confidential information with you, having those kind of systems in place that still protect the kind of integrity of the data, and especially if you are dealing with potential IP that hasn't been registered, etc. I think that's kind of really, really important as well.
You've
Yeah.
got to be confident that the tools that you are using have got all those
Mm.
boxes ticked. Absolutely. Yeah, you can't be using the free version of ChatGPT, for example. That's not going to work.
No, absolutely. The other thing, certainly that I've also seen, which has been very interesting, is Babacar, you were talking about getting a good market overview and deep diving, and also like competitor analysis as well, understanding where the different competitors are. So I think, you know, even if you don't want to use the paid versions,
Oh man.
I think Nick, you need to remind your children how many days till Christmas. And that they might not get
John,
anything with any internet device capability at this rate. Um, yeah, so Stephen, you've also popped some good points in the chat in terms just also making sure that when you do start using tools, all your privacy settings are really set and really, yeah. I think it's also important as well. Babacar, how are you also dealing with your team in terms of AI adoption? And how, in terms of do you have, yeah, and it would be interesting to know, because I think also the use of AI, I think is quite, it also differs between, are you as just as individual angel using it, or, how do you also create an AI framework potentially for an angel group or for a whole organization?
Sorry, the
sorry,
question is, uh,
So
I dropped off again a bit there, so I missed the question.
no, I was just actually asking, I think it's also quite useful having like an individual viewpoint, but I was also just wondering, as angels, we invest individually and we might do our own due diligence, but we also have, many of us are also members of angel groups. And I just wanted to know if you'd had any, if you've got any guidelines, or if you've had to develop any guidelines or kind of guardrails, I suppose, for your, because both of you have quite big teams in terms of your employees and kind of what people can and can't use AI for.
I think in that case, it's very much a view of you only use the tools that have been approved to be used in the organization. You only use tools that the organization is paying for, because
Mm,
as soon as you go outside of that, then obviously then all sorts of challenges and things have to be reviewed. We've got our internal AI whisperer who reviews everything and makes sure that there's everything meets our requirements and meets a level of it of professionalism before we'll start using it internally.
okay. And Babacar, for you?
yeah, I think for us, the first principle we start from is we apply the same confidentiality principle,
Mm,
AI or not AI. So, we have very strict rules around that. We don't share data externally. And we treat kind of customers, as in LP and startup data, in the same way we treat our data. I wouldn't put our internal policies, on those tools that are not, the ones we commonly use. So it's awareness of the risks, and a strict policy around the confidentiality of all the documents that we have.
mm. I think one of the other potential benefits of AI is as well is that if all of us have inherent biases as well. So how have you also seen AI being used for more data-driven decisions rather than kind of, I suppose, more gut feel and kind of instinct-based based investment decisions?
Uh,
I mean, yeah, for me, it's about validation.
Yeah.
Is your where's your gut feel, and are the numbers or the is the data that's being crunched validating that, or isn't it? I think that's key. I do think that your gut's still extremely important. I think there are nuances that you don't put in an algorithm. There are nuances that don't come out in the data, that we're very good at as humans in various senses, in being able to see and internalize. And I mean that gut feel is really, background experience, expertise, etc. And that's still extremely important. The question remains: does the data, do these huge data sets that we are now able to crunch, do they validate or do they contradict what you're feeling?
Mm.
That's key for me.
And, it's still, especially in the early stages, it's not like you're just picking a stock out of a list and you're kind of buying shares and then you just kind of
Yeah,
watch its performance. It's still a very
yeah,
relational, and you still have to, Babacar, as you were saying earlier, it's not just, you don't just put capital in, it's also about the relationship that you build with the founding team or the entrepreneurs.
yeah.
yeah, I don't think AI replaces gut feeling, But for me, it's still automation. Um, but it's very helpful. I think
Mm,
in some cases, one use that, I use it from time to time for that. You can test, challenge some assumptions that you make.
mm,
You have to prompt well, but you can
mm,
say, I'm looking at this type of business in this type of geography. This is currently how I think about it. These are the risks and opportunities I identify. This is the inflection point I see. Could you challenge it based on the available data in XYZ market that I think is similar, but I don't know anything about those markets? Are there other risks that I should think about, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So even in that sense, it can help you strengthen your gut feel about certain things much faster, which again is automation, is a big gain of time versus
mm.
individually going on Google and doing that search for maybe 15 different items. In this
Yeah,
case, you can actually check that with maybe a, I don't know, 200 word prompt that's precise enough, maybe in 30 minutes.
yeah. No, that makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, I do wonder though, I mean, and I'm going to be provocative, like, one of the things, and I was reading the stats again today about how little funding goes to women, etc. And I would love AI to, I don't know, mask the gender of founders and see if there is any bias, and does that overcome some bias? I don't know how you fully test it until people are deploying checks, and it's very hard to deploy checks till you've actually met
yeah.
the founder. Um, but yeah, I hope it is also opening up people's viewpoints as
Maybe,
well.
yeah. Maybe it can help us challenge our inherent biases. I mean, that's real.
Absolutely.
Uh, yeah.
Um, in terms of AI opportunities, where are
Can
you
I,
seeing?
sorry,
Yeah,
before we get there, I just want to recount an experience that I had recently where we sent
please
a
do.
term sheet to a company that we were working with, and within, I don't know, half an hour, I got this response to my term sheet that was like 3 pages long, like massively detailed, and I was like, "What on earth?" And my founder had taken my term sheet, just smashed the whole thing into ChatGPT or similar, and said, pick the bones out of this thing. So I was like, what? No ways. So I was like, okay, well, I've got two choices here. Either I can pick the phone up and have a chat to him, or I can put it back into ChatGPT and say, come up with the responses to your responses. I decided not to go into that chat GPT war, and phoned him up and said, right, how do we, I said, here are the points that I'm going to shift on, here are the ones that I'm not. And he said, fine, let's go. And we were good. Yeah, but I found that
Yeah,
very yeah, where you end up, because I mean there was like, do I have to respond to like all these 30 points that he's made?
no, absolutely. And I think I've also been there. Suddenly, you work with an entrepreneur and they're like, oh yeah, I had this term sheet and I've just whacked it in. And then it also, ChatGPT is quite biased as well. I think it's not always trained on African data and data sets. So yeah, sometimes the
but
responses.
but also pushed back on every single point instead of going, these are the real points, because I mean I don't think he even read the responses. He just got the responses and sent them out. uh, Found that quite amusing.
Yeah, and I think there is also um such a risk, I think, with entrepreneurs. I mean, in some ways, I think it's really fantastic that people can just put a term sheet into ChatGPT and kind of
Hmm.
get this support. But it is also around, at the same time, we've been running some funding programs, and you can see instantly people who've just completed the application form with ChatGPT because ChatGPT doesn't customize answers unless you give very specific prompts, just gives
Yeah,
them the same run. And once you've seen, oh, this is the third, you suddenly start spotting it a mile away. Or if
yeah,
you have a
yeah.
guidance note on your website, suddenly everyone's writing you the exact same response. And you're like, oh, this is what happens when you copy paste it into ChatGPT. Um, yeah, so it's also, I think it's,
You have to. It's the overarching rule of AI is you cannot, take everything as read. You have to go back. You have to read everything. You have to edit it. You have to sense check it, etc., etc.
mm, absolutely. Yeah. Um, Babacar, I don't know if you've got anything you would like to add.
I think I agree with all of that, especially the point that if you're not intelligent, you cannot use AI properly. There's,
Hmm.
I think that there's this thing in AI that your pre-existing understanding of the subject, or at least of the methodology to do something, uh, increases or decreases your ability to leverage AI. If you don't know how to do something yourself, much harder for you to ask AI to do it, or at least to guide it in the
Mm.
right direction and give it the right parameters to do the search. And I noticed this, when doing similar search to different people, and coming up with, better or less good outcomes. Like if I query AI on, I don't know, organic chemistry, I don't know, I take whatever it gives me, but I really don't understand it. But if it's about market research or something I understand, or statistics or otherwise, I can guide it to get where it wants to go. So I think that's kind of the trap of AI, is that if you end up never doing or practicing your judgment and your skills, which means like if you're just using AI to do everything, then AI will be less useful for you.
Mm, mm. Nick, we've actually got a
That's a good
question.
point.
Yeah, we've got a question from the audience. And Babacar, I do like that answer as well. I don't think it's always going to be popular um, when you tell people they're only as clever as, AI. It's not going to make them smarter. But Maria, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, says, Nick, this is a question for you. With regard to the email that you got from the founder, did it not damage the relationship or confidence in the founder?
No, because I know the founder.
Okay.
I know what the founder's like, and it's just like it's very typical of him. He's just like so busy. He's like, right, get the answer, smash it out, and I'm like, right, pick the phone up. This is going to be the. He's much better at talking, so I'm like, let's have a chat. So if I didn't know him, it certainly would have, but he's come through our build program, so I know him well enough to pick the phone up and say, what the hell was that? And have a good conversation. But yes, I think if I didn't know him, it would have been a problem. But yeah, those personal relationships are still key to making these things work. So yeah, um, it did raise a few relevant points. It raised a whole lot of irrelevant points, but there were a couple of relevant points that we discussed and we agreed on. But yeah, that was a yeah.
Well,
It probably brought to the fore the fact that those interpersonal relationships are still absolutely key to making this thing work.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Babacar, I want to switch to you. Um, oh, okay. Actually, no, before we move on, we've got another question from Karen as well. Thanks so much. So, Karen says, curious, like outside of AI platforms, have you dealt with AI agents? And could an could a angels use AI agents to pre-screen founders or track startup progress, automatically extracting metrics from update filings, etc. Um,
Look, there are almost certainly tools out there that will do that kind of things. That would, you mean you receive your an update from your founder, and that goes into to yeah. I'm sure you can probably build your own GPT to do that. But I mean, yeah, I'm sure those are available. Um,
and
Probably
Babacar,
a fair bit of work.
yeah, but Babacar, maybe your CRM, if you're tracking a founder and they're sending you updates on a weekly or monthly basis, having that CRM to pull that data in would almost form a similar um, function, I'm sure.
Sorry, I'm not sure I got the question.
So Karen was asking if you could use an AI agent or agent AI to pre-screen founders and kind of keep tabs on them prior to investment.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Affinity allows you to track people too.
Okay. Okay.
So you can
Yeah.
put people in, various different lists based on their LinkedIn, even companies, and they
Mm.
pull data from Crunchbase, LinkedIn, and many other places. So you can even track employees, like, oh, if a company moved from 5 to 15 employees, whoop, send me a notification. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of things that are possible. There are actually even more advanced tools than Affinity because I mean, there's demand for that. Now, the price point for those tools is significantly
Yeah,
high, I
yeah,
think, and
yes,
uneconomic for Africa. There's a
Yeah.
tool
yeah,
like called Harmonic AI, which costs something like 12 grand per year per
Yeah.
person. But then
Okay.
they literally do the job of all that screening, sourcing, monitoring multiple data sources.
mm.
Mm.
I'll send the name in the chat. It's called Harmonic.
I think it's also like, especially with angel groups, often you want to keep your operational costs as lean as possible.
Exactly.
And there's a
Mm.
limit to how many things. I mean, but it is
Not just Angel Group, but VCs as
Everyone.
well.
everyone. I mean, I remember when Google Alerts first was around, and I used to set up Google Alerts for all the founders we were working with or looking at and all the companies and, you know, our weekly updates. We had a few entrepreneurs who had quite common names, and we'd then have to sort out whether our founder really was getting arrested in the US or Ireland. Or we had an entrepreneur who Nick will know called Sean Riley, which is a very, very common Irish
Yeah.
name. And
Yeah.
there were a lot of examples. So I think with AI and being able to filter things and even for looking for opportunities is really great. Um, so now moving on to kind of the opportunity side, um, where are you seeing the most interesting opportunities from kind of startups across the continent where they are using AI to disrupt industries and potential sectors?
Nick, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my big thing about AI is yeah, everybody gets stuck on like, oh, AI is going to do all sorts of amazing things, and yeah, everybody's got to have AI in their deck, and yeah, the reality is ultimately, if you're not using AI, then why not? You know, it's like going back a few years when the fourth industrial revolution was a buzzword, and you know, connected devices was a buzzword, and I'm like, well, if your device isn't connected, then you know, why not? So you know, for us, it you know, AI does need to be, you know, there are few cases where people are not using AI in what they're doing, and typically it's a case of, well, why aren't you? And wouldn't it be better with a little bit of AI in? There are obviously those businesses that AI is fundamental to what they're doing, and what we like, and what I, you know, what the kind of AI native businesses that are doing things that I think are relevant are companies that are taking existing, obviously speaking to my book here, you know, hardware, deep tech, and you know, connect, you know, taking things that are already working and making them smarter, making them work a lot better, and give greater insights and greater opportunities to make the world a better place. You know, that for me is key. So I mean, some examples of that are, we have a company that is doing TB diagnosis. They are using a stethoscope, a digital stethoscope, and they listen to your lungs, and they are diagnosing TB using your lung sounds, and they're doing that for a fraction of the cost. And at, you know, so your typical TB diagnosis, you know, the gold standard is you know, you go and have an X-ray, and then somebody looks at the X-ray and determines whether you've got TB or not. And they're doing that. Obviously, you know, you need to go and get your X-ray, and then somebody has to look at it, and then whatever. So this is now happening, you know, at your point of care, um, for, you know, the marginal cost of about maybe a rand to 5 rand, and you get a result in 2 minutes, maybe a little bit less than that. So you're taking something that takes, you know, a significant amount of time and 500 plus rand to do, and you doing it for significantly less, significantly faster, and probably a little bit better as well. So, you know, that for me, those are the, and that's just one example of one company in our portfolio that's doing amazing things. Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that gets me interested, you know, taking something that's known, making it smarter, making it better, giving it the ability to crunch huge databases and compare models, you know, compare insights to that database, and come up with solutions. You know, those are the kinds of things where AI has a lot of value to add. Um, in our environment. Got a company doing something similar with energy and energy networks, and yeah, there's a range of those things. So yeah, that makes me interested and excited, is making, yeah, it's, yeah, what it says on the box, making things smarter, work better, work cheaper, work quicker. That makes me excited, and there's a significant amount of it that are out there.
Yeah. Babacar?
Yeah. No, see, I mean, getting me started on a topic that I can talk about for 2 days. So I have to pick what I'm going to talk about. I think first I'd say AI is a solution to many problems, or is part of the solution to many problems we have in Africa. Well, I want to start there because I hear a lot this discourse of, oh, we don't have electricity, we don't have XYZ, why should we care about AI? Well, a few years ago and still today, people were saying the same thing about tech startups, etc. I
Mm.
think when we say AI or when we say tech in Africa, many people misunderstand what we're talking about. We're not doing another, I don't know, of those, consumer gimmick businesses that, can create unicorns. Most of the businesses that actually attract capital and scale in Africa are solving real problems. I mean, for two reasons. I think entrepreneurs, the real entrepreneurs, they focus on solving problems they see around them, and we have so many of them in essential areas of life. But also, that's where the opportunity is. And I think in that sense, AI can create markets in spaces that did not, where maybe tech alone was not enough. And so for us, we see opportunities, I'd say, on two levels. One, which is what people understand as AI, which is, the AI stack, which is effectively companies doing, language models, company doing data training, and, everything that basically is in that AI stack. I mean, the GPU microchip side is maybe the one that is maybe a little trickier to address from the continent, and maybe we don't have a competitive advantage. But in all the other layers of the stack, we do have an opportunity rooted in our competitive disadvantage, which is that, purchasing power is so low in Africa, whether for individuals or businesses, that is much, much, much harder to create a business case by working on global models at their global price point at scale. And it's the same thing we saw in cloud and digital services for businesses. And that's why Zoho is taking market share from the big tech players, without making a lot of noise. It's about price competitiveness, and it's also about localization, billing in local currency, adapting to, all the African specific challenges we have, which is informal businesses, which is connectivity, irregular, or I would say sometimes lower connectivity, higher latency, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we think there's a big opportunity in that space. We're increasingly seeing African founders building in those spaces. And we think there's a clear business case for investing in those solutions to have an African AI stack that can be competitive locally, and if it performs well and has a good base on the continent, could then scale in other markets thanks to that cost competitiveness. And so that's the first area, I'd say. Second area, which is more like vertical solutions, on the typical areas where VC is developed in Africa. I think in those type of opportunities, which is like financial inclusion, agri education, etc. What we really focus on when we look at AI native businesses, we focus on problems that humans are very bad at solving. Because for AI solutions to be competitive in Africa, they have to be cheaper than the cost of labor or more scalable. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So, things like fraud management. Fraud is a huge issue in the African financial sector in general. There's so many people who are taking so much money from banks and insurance companies, and therefore reducing
And
trust.
government.
And government, of course. And the consequences are really bad. They reduce trust. When there's no trust, there's more friction to doing business. So you ask for more collateral, you ask for more things, you make it harder for people to get in. So you exclude more. And financial exclusion is one of the biggest issues on the continent. That's why we're not able that much to mobilize local capital, because the money is not in the system. So I think that's one area where AI is really powerful, and I've seen some solutions that are truly impressive. Whether it's for like financial sector, like payments, banking, etc., to spot scammers across different financial institutions. So that's one. And if I take specifically the health insurance space, like my background's in insurance, so I I tend to care a lot about whether we can enable people to be protected. And the fact that people don't have health insurance for the most part on the continent is a real big issue. Because a lot of people go back in poverty after a health event because there was no coverage, so they have to sell their assets to cover for the immediate health event. And so what's really exciting in that space is that one of the reasons why health insurance has not scaled is that it's too expensive because insurance lose money there. And more than 50% of claims are fraudulent, at least. Nobody knows really how much because otherwise they would have fixed it, but it's more than 50%. If you effectively reduce that 50% or 60 or 70 down to something that's more reasonable, you can cut massively the price of health insurance. And I've seen some solutions that are able to effectively do it, whether by bringing more digitization, even without AI, just having stuff on record and verifiable on a trusted ledger. So that can have impact. AI goes even further because you can now scale your compute capacity to identify patterns and bad actors. Because the fraud is not always the people. Often it's the healthcare provider that's fraudulent and creating fake invoices, etc. So yeah, I think it's extremely promising, especially in an area like that, but also in other areas that are super complex, like logistics.
Mm. Mm. Thanks, Babacar. Thanks, Nick. We've got a really interesting question from Agnes. So Agnes is she would like to know what percentage of the ventures using AI are women founded or owned, because she's trying to do some work around looking at women-owned ventures that are utilizing AI, and yeah, keen to understand whether it's just kind of operational use or technical use.
Honestly, it's hard to say. I can say for my part, I know we're looking at some startups that are co-founded by women founders in the AI space. We try to keep a balance, but it's really, really hard. I don't think there's any public data on that. And I think it would be important to clarify the question. Is it using AI or really having AI at the core of the business model?
Yeah.
Because I would distinguish those two. Everybody's using AI now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's, is it I think it's almost like, we used to talk about like true tech businesses versus tech-enabled businesses. And I think, all businesses are kind of tech-enabled or AI-enabled now, but do they have some kind of core like piece of their innovation or business or data that's kind of needs AI? And
I think we've got 14 businesses currently in our build program. And of those we've got 4 or 5 that are female founders. Probably I would say one of those has AI as a core of their offering.
We have also worked with quite a few female-founded AI businesses. And specifically also I was talking actually both winners of the Africa Prize. I mentioned Ellie at the very beginning of this session, but he's Kenyan, but also the Esther who won last year is using AI for disease detection in crops in her piece of hardware, and she was also a winner. Nana, you asked why you would want to use paid versions, and it's really just to make sure that you are keeping data secure and private, and you're not using confidential information to train AI. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
that is. We are almost at the end of our session. And I want to say a huge thank you to both you, Babacar and Nick, in terms of joining us for this chat today. Babacar, I completely agree. I think we could have a whole 2-day conference and get together and chat on AI. So, Stephen, I'm going to let you have the last word. And so Stephen asked, some of the AI tools that you've shared are pricier than the usual ChatGPT. Do you think in the long term, AI will be able to answer the point you raised about being cheaper than the cost of labor in the continent? And is there some who believe that the current pricing of AI is the introductory price? And I think it's also,
Babacar, that's yours.
yeah. Also, what is the cost of AI? Are we really calculating the true cost of AI when it's
I mean, I think we're in a model now. It's unclear. Definitely for ChatGPT, it seems like they might be selling it below cost. If you take an average of their customers, because most people using the free version, but you'll notice that
Yeah.
the effective pricing has increased, because now you can query much less on the free version than you could just 3 months ago. So price of AI is going up, and I mean, if these guys are worth 500 billion today, it's because people expect to make money. The way they're going to make money is by charging more and charging more people. So effectively, I think the price is going to increase significantly, but the cost varies per provider. Google has the cheapest cost per prompt because they have the best data. And so, it's hard to give a generic answer for everyone.
Yeah. And I think there's also, I think also
And sorry, Alexandra, I just wanted to add one point, which I think is really, really important. People tend to think that building AI models and AI solutions is expensive. It is not. In many cases, there are open source models that you can use that use limited data, compute, etc., like Gemma, for instance, that allow you to build solutions much easier, much faster. I mean, even look at what DeepSeek is doing now, offering these solutions at much more affordable rates on the continent. So I think that we have to take it in a staged way, right? In some cases, we have world-class talent that can build world-class solutions from the continent, and I think that's generally underestimated. But we also are able to have very good tech people learn about these solutions and quickly go and build these solutions using those open source models that are available.
Yeah, and I think it's, Babacar, it is incredible what people can do now. And I mean, like, you literally can kind of vibe code an MVP in a couple of hours. That's probably what Nick's kids are doing, is impacting his bandwidth, because he's got 2 boys. I see what my nephew's doing, and it is just incredible, and just how many different things there are. So I also think from a founder's perspective, it's, the cost to actually building something and proving that it works, I think is just going to be, get cheaper and cheaper. But then it's also, anyway, brings up a whole lot of things. Nick, do you have any final words of advice for any angels looking at the AI space before we take bye?
Look, I would say you embrace it. It's there. It's not going away. Embrace it with caution. But it's here. It's going to make our world very different. We need to make the most of it. So yeah, climb in. But do so carefully.
Thank you so much. Babacar and Nick, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your time, really appreciate you sharing your knowledge, your tools. For those of you who, Babacar, I'm not sure if we'll see you in Cape Town in November. For those of you who are going to attend ACES,
Yes.
you can walk across to Savant's office and almost knock on the door if Nick will let you in, because it's literally across the road. But really enjoyed today's session. Sorry we didn't get through all the questions, but I'm sure this might be one of many AI discussions. And
Definitely.
glad you guys have found it so interesting. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Alex.
You
Thanks,
too.
Babacar.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.